come up here, Lawrence. He is the owner of The Park, which is this amazing collaborative space we have here. So I'll let him explain a little bit about what they do.
Fantastic. First of all, I want to say, I'm gonna actually put this down. I want to say, Jason and Chase, I'm very impressed with what both of you guys are doing. I'm very impressed with what both of you guys are doing. I met these guys, we had a launch party here a few months ago, and it's actually very impressive. And I'm really pleased to see everyone here. The main event is those two and the speaker, so I'm going to speak briefly, and then I'll let you get to the main event. My partner, John Forsmer, and I, we've known each other since elementary school, and we went to high school together, and we went off in different directions. I worked on Wall Street and still work in the investment business. I do a lot of private equity, venture capital. And John works in the apparel industry, still does, as a partner in a Chinese company, which is the world's largest manufacturer of women's sleepwear for America and shoes for the United Kingdom. And John and I have a lot of similar investment interests, real estate interests, and we teamed up a year ago. We got together again, and we came up with this idea. And we wanted this interesting collaborative workspace. You know, there's a few companies in this space. It's called a co-working space. We had this idea. We're just sitting around the table, and we started reading about it and talking about it. And one day, John, through a business contact, got us here downtown and said, let's do it. And this place, if some of you came here before, there were different brands, and it was a showroom, and it looked nothing like this. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but it didn't look like this. And so, maybe as an inspiration to all of you, we completely redesigned the place. I'm not a professional designer, I'm an investor. John is not a professional designer, but we have certain instincts. We have investment instincts, we have brand instincts, and we redesigned this place. There are offices over here, there are one-person offices, two-person offices, three- and four-person offices, bigger executive offices, there's upstairs, a dedicated desk. And we created this, I think, really wonderful, interesting, and dynamic collaborative workspace. And we just very recently opened. It has a fashion industry bent simply because we are in the fashion industry. John's company is located here. We have different brands that have already come in here and that have become members. We have actually, not at liberty to say who, but a former all-pro football player who is on Fox Sports every week and is one of the hosts of the shows. He's taking a big office out there, and a couple of his guys. We have a woman who runs a modeling agency. So we have different people, and each one is very important to our community, who have already come in. We've really only been open. The first full month was December, and the offices, thank God, are being utilized. And each person is very precious to us here, and we're very excited about what we have here. So I will say, as an inspiration, perhaps to all of you, I'm sure maybe many of you have done even greater things than this. But I tell you, things can be done, things can happen, and we believe that this is the first, quite frankly, of many, many spaces, of buildings we're going to buy, etc., etc. So, and we think it's really exciting that we're here in the fashion industry. I'm really excited to hear the introduction. These two guys are very dynamic, and I know I've met a lot of people in the industry. It's not my background, but I've met a lot of exciting and interesting people and a lot of great opportunities here. I hope you have a wonderful evening with the Apparel Business Review and getting to know one another. If anyone should be interested in becoming a member of this space, Jamal is the director of our client services. He'll give you a tour here afterwards. And if you're not interested in becoming an official member of our space, we're thrilled to have you here. My whole philosophy is I want to provide the space as a resource to the community, provide people with the opportunity to come here. I'm on the cabinet of the United Way of Los Angeles. We had the United Way event here. We're having different charities. We don't charge for this. We're happy and thrilled to have you all here. And please enjoy yourselves. My card is on the desk. If anyone wants to talk to me about an investment idea or any advice or anything, I'm more than happy to do that. I mentor certain people. I help set up the institute, the USC National School of Business, I'm at Business School. So I'm involved in the community here, and I'm happy happy to be a resource to anyone. And if anyone, as you know, wants to come here for a free day or a communal space, you're more than welcome to do that. Mention today, speak to Kimberly, speak to Jamal. And again, if you're interested, of course, speak to Jamal. Please feel welcome. Jamal will give a tour afterwards. And finally, make the most of this evening. These guys are great. You all look great. And really, you just enjoy yourself. A pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. My name is Chase Vance. Jason and I, we started this together in our apartments a few months back. So as we have a few more meetings, we'll talk a little bit about more of the history as well as we'll share some pictures from that first meeting. A couple announcements here, just things to kind of know about the park. So anyone that is filling out the cards, they're going to be giving out a free day for everyone who fills out those cards, as well as raffling off 2 things.
There will be 2 winners that will have 2 weeks to work here at the park at cost free. So good luck, everyone.
So with the acronym here, CSI, we're seeing that personified. The words are kind of they're airy, if you will. They can take a lot of different directions, and we're already starting to see it become concrete in a lot of different ways. So one of the announcements that I want to get started with tonight is we are actually, ABR as a group, for everyone that's involved, is now partnered with a trade show that's going to be in Toronto, Canada. It's an apparel and sportsman trade show. This is happening really fast. It's so cool to see everyone here that's able to be a part of it. So stay tuned over the course of the next couple weeks or so. We're going to be announcing a lot more about it. And anyone that we can have up there, it's going to be in August. Right after that, we'll have a lot more information for it. Next, I think it's time to get our speaker introduced here for the evening. So, Jason, if you want to stand up here, stand out. Jason Shin and I met Jason Wright here at one of our first meetings. I missed that one. We got to meet him a couple weeks after. And that's true. That is accurate. And some of the stories just blew us away. So one of the things that we really want to emphasize here in ABR is the importance of creativity as well as sales and numbers. Because you may have all these great ideas, but you need to know how to sustain and grow a business from nothing that will grow into something quite large at some point. So he's consulted with some pretty incredible companies, and he's had some pretty amazing stories along the way, which I think you'll be pretty impressed by. And please take notes of any questions along the way. We'd like it to be an open dialogue, and then after that open dialogue, his presentation, we will have an open Q&A as well. So, Jason, please take it away.
Watching the ocean envelop in rocks, shaking the sand out of my socks. Contemplating relationships with oceans and moon phase. Grand cardinal crossing a new day. Several new ways of thinking. A solid imaginarium and intellectual planetarium. While swimming and drowning, the reincarnated in a mental aquarium. Through the constellations, I'm carrying out a message like a gold record strapped to a satellite in a lake. Recording my adventures, though human considered safe, because in my inner space, I boldly wouldn't replace all displaced living energy that I thought I erased. Engage all the memories, dark matter encased in a state that's suspended by motivation awake. A break from the gravity that replaces the shape to a nebula. I found a velocity and escape with the fury of a nova and supergaseous states. I quaked and erupted like masturbations of fate. I ascertain and relate through new equation and take a new direction. My sextant has calculated it straight. In alliance of auroras of borealis and australis, I made amends with my demons and bound them all as my sailors. Now overzealous and cruel in the pirate ship of my soul. It's second star to the right and straight on until the darkness goes. What's the difference between pigs and cars? Oh, piece of duck, that's the question. Anybody? What's anything they have in common?
Pigs and cars?
Pigs and cars. they move, and depending on what kind of car you're in, possibly the same speed. Anybody else? Anybody else draw any parallel between pigs and cars?
When is alive and when isn't?
Yes. Technically, yes. So, each of you have in front of you, I hope, in front of you, a card of bullet points, and there's a clue to what pigs and cars have in common in that picture. Anyone else want to take a gander before I do the spoiler on this? late 1800s, early 1900s, Henry Ford, amongst other people, were looking to become more efficient in the automotive industry. They had teams all working on the same car all at the same time to basically put together the best quality vehicle they could, because Henry Ford wanted to make a car for the common man, somebody that didn't have to be, an oil baron or a titan of industry or from some nobility to be able to afford it. And they visited a slaughterhouse in the meatpacking industry in Chicago. And what they noticed was there was a guy who would take the pigs, put them on meat hooks, slide them down the line. Take carcass, meat hook, slide, all day long. And it would reach another person who all he would do is cut it, gut it, slide it down. Cut it, gut it, slide it down. This concept of having one person doing one job, one job. That focus allowed for them to churn through thousands of pig carcasses a day that would probably have been reduced to only hundreds had there been one person doing all of that. Many people saw it, but Ford took it to Enterprise Day. He said, oh, I wonder what happened if I swapped out the pigs for cars. What would happen? Revolutionized the American motor. Pigs for cars. What I want to speak to you guys about this evening is how you can draw parallels to seemingly unrelated practices and businesses and how that can be used to your benefit in theory. But also in application, how you can take the value of yourself and the things that you have experienced and apply it to whatever you want. Does that sound all right? There are bullet points. We're going to go through these. I wanted to give you guys these for two reasons. One, because I'm one of those people that when I talk, it's like a computer screen with a bunch of windows come up, and I like to be able to close all of the windows. So this is a way for you to follow along, for you to be able to make specific notes, because I'm going to give you a lot of information. It's going to be very dense. We're condensing about 2 hours of talking into about 25 minutes. Feel free to write down any questions that you have. And at the end of it, we're going to talk a little bit more about another initiative that we're going to start that will allow you to take advantage of these opportunities. So, you'll notice we talked about pigs for cars. What allowed Ford to be able to make use of that opportunity was observation and discernment. Observation, just being aware of your surroundings. Some of you guys might have been here for the talk on the OODA loop. Anybody? Hands up. So, similar thing, being observant, understanding what's going on, knowing where you stand. But also discernment. Discernment is a little bit of a trickier word. It's more about being able to tell what's important and what's not. It's the wisdom of understanding how to apply something. But beyond that, it's understanding where you fit into that. J.R.R. Tolkien is frequently quoted with the Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost. It's a poem. That's the one line that most people talk about because a lot of us are creators, many in here are millennials, which is to me the weirdest word in the world because it only applies to people that are trying to take advantage of the people in that group. That's a whole other topic. But it's really about those that grew up with multiple influences that didn't have just one particular influence. I reference Emily Wapnick's talk on TED when she talks about multi-potentialites, which is basically her point word for polymaths. People that have more than one discipline, and actually the title of that talk was what happens if you have more than one calling in life? If you don't have just one true calling, you have like 17, I don't know, and you're actually pretty decent at all 17. So she talks a bit about that, and the bottom line with that is the more that you've experienced, the more dots you can connect. You understand from both sides. For example, if you've been a buyer and you go into sales, well, you gotta sell to a buyer because you know what would have sold to you. Likewise, if you go from pattern making to designing, you understand what one side needs to make the other side much more efficient. Or as we talked about before, you saw a house too. So, with that being said, going to the next stage of it, which is stories over advice, there's a difference in how you can effectively teach people. I'm gonna walk around because I'm a walker, so I do it. So granted, I'm gonna apologize. So, how many people have younger siblings? Raise your hand. Sheesh, your parents were busy. So, you have a younger sibling. You say, hey, you get a big check, put it in the bank. Do not spend it. Don't go out to Vegas with your friends. Don't go to Cabo. Don't go overseas. Save it until you get the next check. What's your younger sibling going to do?
Spend it.
You tell your younger sibling, man, first time I got money, we went everywhere. And I came back 3 weeks later and didn't have anything to show for it. And I was hitting mom up for like 10 grand. I don't know how I got here. And now all my friends think I'm a loser. What's your sibling going to do? When you give someone advice, what you're doing is telling them what you would do. It's dictation. It's dictatorship. When you tell someone a story, well, that's an invitation for them to take from what they want. And then they can choose what applies to them. But they can't draw a parallel to your story if you don't give them a story. It's like a lot of parents that are like, no, I told you don't do that. The parent knows why they're telling the kid no, but the kid has no idea because you didn't tell them why. And so they go do it, not because they're hard-headed, because they still want to know why I can't do this thing. Now, there are those parents that are still human. They're like, oh, well, my word should be law, and this is what you should just do, because I know what's best for you. The kid's like, yeah, but how do I know? So that's the importance of stories. I'd like to share with you something else, though, why stories are very important. People that tell stories, like filmmakers, can parallel to a great number of life lessons. Jim Jarmusch is a cult favorite director of mine. He's directed Limits of Control, and Coffee and Cigarettes, and several other very cult, like what we call art house films. And his style of storytelling is very interesting, just as his rules for filmmaking, which are normally filled with a lot of non sequiturs and four-letter words, which is amazing. But it was his rule number 5 that has always resonated with me the most, and I want to read it to you verbatim because I do not know which quote this, because it's very important if you guys understand this. Nothing is original. Steal from anywhere that resonates with inspiration or fuels your imagination. Devour old films, new films, music, books, painting, photographs, poems, dreams, random conversations, architecture, bridges, street signs, trees, clouds, bodies of water, light, and shadows. But select only things to steal from that speak directly to your soul. If you do this, your work and theft will be authentic. Authenticity is invaluable. Originality is non-existent. And don't bother concealing your thievery. Celebrate if you feel like it. In any case, always remember what Jean-Luc Godard said. It's not where you take things from, it's where you take them to. When you draw a parallel between two seemingly non-common worlds, you're taking something somewhere else. And that's the power of a story. So moving on to the last point in theory, what's more powerful than your story? How else do you engage people in such a way that makes them feel like they're on fire and they can share the same flame as you have? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's a quote from Simon Sinek. Anybody that is not familiar with this TED Talks, I overwhelmingly encourage you guys to look them up. I guarantee you'll find yourself in like a 3-hour rabbit hole. It's amazing. It's great. But you inspire with your why, your story, why you're doing something. And not the why that's for your parents. Not the why that's for your wallet. It's the why that is for you. Why you chose to do something. What is your real motivation? How many of you guys have seen the meme of remember why you started? Like, that's very important to remember your why. this kind of inspiration that you inspire people by finding your why is the same as, there's another quote, I'm going to have a lot of quotes, you guys can Marianne Williamson has a quote about not shrinking yourself and how you playing small is no part of the universe. Like, what frightens people is not their darkness, but their light. And as you liberate yourself, you subconsciously give other people the permission to be themselves. And the best examples of that is Pharrell Williams. He was wearing trucker hats and like extra medium t-shirts when the entire hip hop industry was wearing baggy jeans and gold chains. And he didn't inspire a legion of kids to be like him. He inspired a legion of kids to stop trying to be like someone else and just be themselves. That is the power of your story, and that's the power of your inspiration. And that's actually, like, honestly, it's kind of what this is. Like, you inspire people to collaborate, to support, and to innovate whatever ideas you may have already had, because it's like being in a lecture and somebody asks a question you might have been too scared to ask, but now that they ask this, and now you want to add on to it because it's like, oh, well, now that's out there. Let's go do it. And that is the most wonderful part about your story. And I'm going to close this segment with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, which I always mispronounce. Somebody please say it. Somebody say it.
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Thank you. Author of The Little Prince. I'm still working on my French. Please don't hold this against me in France. I love you. But this quote is about how you motivate people. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. You give somebody something to believe in, something to be passionate about, whatever it takes to get that, they will do it. Money, passport, firstborn child, whatever. They will do whatever it takes to get that feeling. But they can't feel it if it's not conveyed in a real way. Does that make sense? Any questions? Good. There'll be more questions later. So to go over to the application part of things. Yes? Which one? Simon Sinek? S-I-N-E-K. Simon Sinek, yes.
How great leaders inspire.
There it is, thank you.
You go to fit in, you've seen it 3 times.
Probably all in my class.
No.
Not in my class.
Instructors.
By the way, for those of us watching on Periscope, these are not paid advertisements. These are opinions expressed by me. So let's go into application, because you can have all of the knowledge in the world as far as like knowing what to recite, but if you don't know how to apply it, it means absolutely nothing. You can have all the right diet books up there and all the right exercise books and all the right equipment. If you're not using it, you're not going to get anything out of it. You can know every self-help book that you need to read. If you don't apply it, it does not matter. It's a Ferrari with no engine. It's just beautiful. And it does nothing but sit. So, in application, there are 3 things that you can utilize to activate any idea. This goes from, I don't know, designing a shirt to putting a man on Mars. Same 3 things are always going to be needed. How many people in here enjoy food and like to eat? Don't be shy. Good. For those of you that have not eaten yet today, this will appeal to great. You need 3 things. If you're going to open a restaurant, what do you think are the 3 most important things you need? Raise your hand, anybody.
Ingredients.
Okay. Anybody else? Just shout them out, doesn't matter.
Idea.
Money is important. But before all that, what 3 things do you need?
People.
Let's go. Hold on. Somebody said people.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Anybody else?
Swimming.
Okay. Somebody read the paper. Anybody else?
Recipe.
Oh, there we go. And so we have a menu, recipes, and what's the last thing? There we go. All right, we're getting our kindergarten selves back because I can't talk. There we go.
Oh, wow.
All right, so
It says right here.
how many of you guys would trust ordering fried chicken from a sushi restaurant? Would you trust it?
I'd be interested. Yeah.
How many people would trust sushi from a pizza restaurant? Why not? Wait, I don't understand. Like,
Once again, I lived in Japan for 4 years. I would trust it.
you're a rare bird, my friend. Like, he's the one like putting in your review like seems legit. Anyone else though? Would you trust sushi from a pizza restaurant? Why? Why?
Specialized knowledge.
Please say that louder, please.
Specialized knowledge.
Specialized knowledge, which is a very, very intense way of saying it doesn't make sense. There's no alignment. There's no consistency. There's no story. You can tell the story of, my grandfather tossed pizza set to the backdrop of The Sopranos or Godfather, whatever the case may be. You can't have sushi with that. It just doesn't work. Unless it's a Tarantino film. But what you need is, you need to know what you're presenting. So once you got to the point where you have a story to tell, once you got to the point where you understand where you can pull from, you are the restaurant. You have all these resources you can pull from. You can make any kind of culinary concoction that your heart desires. So what do you make? That is probably the hardest question to answer of any client that I've ever asked. But what do you really want to make? Not what can work, not what will work, not what you could sell, but what actually do you want to make? Like, what do you want to make? What do you want to see exist? And when you can make whatever you want, you have no idea what to do. It's like going into a kitchen with a full pantry. It's like, and you're hungry and everything looks delicious, so you make nothing. I can't tell you how many clients I've had that I've designed 7 collections for and still get back to square one. They spent $90,000, $120,000, $250,000 and still have nothing to show for it because they never had a buyer. And because they didn't create a cohesive story that actually made sense. You can't sell sushi from Pizza Hut. It's not going to work because it doesn't follow any form of logic. There's no story for it. Unless you can tell someone that the story is your Japanese grandfather went to Italy just to learn how to make pizza because his entire family made sushi. And that's when he learned how to make it. But that's a story, and that's yours. And then everyone outside of him will try sushi. So your menu is, and I wrote this down, so I wouldn't miss that. Your menu is your cohesive offering backed by your story of your why. It has to be cohesive. It has to make sense. When you look at a menu, okay, small plates makes sense. Large plates makes sense. Desserts, awesome, perfect. There's a story here. It reads, it breathes, and it flows. That is the hardest part. But once you have achieved that, however many iterations it takes to get to that point, everything else is easy. Because once you know what you're making, what do you need? Recipes, right? That is your how. Recipes are your process. My friend Alan from back home used to always quote his grandmother's saying, which is a very brilliant saying. It's like, old Midwestern Southern wisdom, which is, process is the difference between eating ingredients and eating apple pie.
Say that again.
Process is the difference between eating ingredients and eating apple pie. Yeah, you can take a handful of flour and sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, egg, and throw it in your mouth. It's not going to be as delicious as working the ingredients together, letting them sit, and then putting them into a pan, and then putting that into an oven, and leaving it alone. And let it just do what it does. Because that process is what congeals everything. The process is the other part that most people forget. They think, oh no, menu and doors open. No. Because if you don't have the recipes, you don't know the right quantities. You don't know the right proportions. You can't quantify what you have to create. So in apparel, you need to know your production costs. You need to know your yield. You need to know how many units you're going to create. And that's just in creating a product. If you're in the sales chain, you need to know how many accounts you're going after, what the demographic is, what the spread is going to be coastally, how many international markets you're going to. If you're in production, you need to have tech packs. You need to have tech packs. You need to, but that's there are things that you need in order to deliver what the customer wants, which is what they ordered, which is what was on the menu. Your recipes are the most important thing. That is your process, your protocols, and the quantification of your resources. Because once you know how many pieces of everything you need, and you know how many of each thing you're going to make, then you have to put all that together. And that's where you get to the easiest part of everything. Shopping list. Hey, intern, go pick up all this. Hey, production manager. Yeah, hope you got gas in your car. Your shopping list is your delegatable readout of your required materials and resources. That's it. And if you notice, every step gets infinitely easier. It's an inverted pyramid where you start with your menu and you narrow everything down into that block. And then you have your recipes, which all source from this. Because if you know how to make one, you know how to make 1,000. And then from there, knowing how many you want to make, you know how many materials to get. Very simple. But again, simple is not the same as easy. Simple is, it's only this, and this. How that happens? Well, that's the process. That's what I say, enjoy the process, because that's the most important part. And you'll learn so much more from the process not working than you do from the process working. If it worked every time, you wouldn't know anything, except for reinforcing what you've already done. So, going into that feeds into research and refinement. You're always going to need to consistently research everything that you do. You want to make sure that you're right in the same market that you need to be in. You need to research your demographic. You need to research your sourcing. For those of you that are looking into being green or vegan or just ethical, Donald Trump is running for president. So, making sure that you're doing good business, you have to do research, not just on what you want to create or where you're going to sit or who you want to work with. Notice to sit with, not for, a lot of freelancers in there. Who you want to work with. But also, you want to know where they're getting their stuff, what their references are, who they're working with. Because that's not apparel, though. That's a deal breaker. If somebody has done shady business, that could look negatively upon you. But beyond that, you want to make sure that you know where you stand. And I'm not talking about what you're creating, I'm talking about yourself. Being able to do honest feedback to colleagues. Doing a SWOT analysis not only on your products, but on yourself, on your protocols, on your procedures, on your best practices. Anybody in here not familiar with what SWOT analysis is? Anybody want to answer? Not you, Will, because you're okay. Anybody else?
Want to answer?
Yeah.
Your strengths, weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats.
Did you hear that? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Don't take those words at face value, though. Because your strengths aren't just what you're good at, it's what you have on hand. It's what you can actively action on right now. Your weaknesses are whatever you need, whatever you can't actively action on right now. Your opportunities are probably whatever that you could take advantage of if you just picked up the phone. Your threats are whatever's keeping you from doing that. It's a very, very, very simple way to do it. And also way simpler than the way I was talking. But you want to look for the common threads, and that goes back to the theme of everything, which is finding these parallel links. You want to find commonalities between the feedback that you're getting, whether it's on your product or on your practices, and your SWOT analysis. Because if you think that you're great here, and somebody else says, not so much, you have a problem. You need to make sure that what you think on the inside is what other people are getting on the outside. All the way around. Double, triple check it. Always research, always refine, boil it down, send it back out. It's the reason why every single app in the world gets beta tested by their friends. And some people have friends that are not even really good friends. They're actually people that don't even like them that much. It's, hey, look, I just think you check this out. And you're going to be brutally honest because you're going to look for how this is terrible. It's the best feedback you can get. Like, honestly, I don't know if anybody's ever heard this, but the best honest feedback you can get is from an ex. Ex-business partner, ex-lover, ex-family member, whatever the case may be. Anyone that ever had a reason to hold a grudge against you can be used to your advantage. Because everything is a benefit to you. There's a lesson to you or a lesson to you, regardless. So utilize everything that you have within your resources, because you already have everything that you need. You just don't know that you have it. And you have resources that somebody else would kill for. By virtue of just being in Los Angeles, all of you have to make up on 90% of the rest of the country is between here and New York. And I'm saying that as somebody that is a very proud product of Indiana. That wasn't a joke. So, what you do with the feedback you get is, well, the obvious. Do more of what worked and learn from what didn't. Period. You apply it immediately. I also want to talk about one thing that I've been reading increasingly more and more about that is, it comes from the tech world, but it can apply to anything. The benefit of moving fast, not rushing, but moving with a sense of purpose, moving quickly so you don't have enough time to think yourself out of it. It's like that old adage of jumping off of a cliff and building your wings on the way down. When you have to create something, you're allowing your instinct and your talent to take over. There's a very great paper that was written by Ben Kesdocha. This gentleman spent 10,000 hours with Reid Hoffman, who is the head of LinkedIn, which is going to tie into something else as well. But he talked about a lot of things that he learned in his time with Reid, but the biggest thing that he learned was moving fast. Reid told him, he said, Ben, I want you to head this new project. I am willing to accept a 10% margin of failure as long as you're moving fast. Because when you move fast, you will make earnest mistakes. Now, mind you, everyone you work with, or some of you that work for companies or work for, will not have the same margin of error. But if you push yourself, you'll find out how good you are because you have no choice but to figure it out. But you're also going to find out how resourceful you are because you're going to have to make these decisions and fix it on the fly. Best example I can give is, anybody familiar with what the America's Cup is? Anybody? So it's a sailboat race. They've done it in San Francisco, done it around the world. It's really awesome. But these guys have to figure out basically how not to capsize their boat while going faster than everybody else. And not so ironically, most of them are all sponsored by watch companies and tech companies. I wonder why that is. It's a very interesting parallel, right? But it makes sense. Speed is your friend because your mind will betray you 17 times out of 18. Remember to move with a sense of burning urgency and trust that you'll figure it out. Just do it. Doesn't have to be perfect to start, but it does have to start. So that being said, we're going to talk about what a lot of people really have the hardest time with, even beyond determining what they want to do. Monetization, which is one, and the value of you. Value and worth, similar but very different. So we're going to start with that. The value of you is just recognizing why you're awesome. And that sounds super fluffy and hippie and funny and snarky, but it's a real thing. Because if you knew how awesome you were, you wouldn't accept anything less than how great you are. How many people read their resume outside of just before applying for a job? Raise your hand. You should see way more hands. You should put your hand down because you look like that. That doesn't count because I was running that job and that didn't work out. And then my mom asked me what I was doing, so I had to send her this. No. Why? You worked all these jobs, and then you just carted off as reducing yourself to just the title that you did? How many people know for a fact that whatever title they held at whatever position they've been in, they did way more than what the title said? Exactly. So why are you letting yourself feel limited to just the title of what you put in the few characters you like? Everyone's resume reads like a recap on Twitter, 140 characters of what you did this job. How is that an accurate representation of everything that you did, everything that you learned, everything that you were forced through? How? How, Swag? How? Somebody answer. How? It's not. So you have to review your resume. If anything else, just to remind yourself. And this is where that tie into LinkedIn comes in. I used to be intimidated by LinkedIn. And I was even more intimidated by it when I went freelance and was totally out of corporate America. I was like, yeah, no one's going to take me seriously ever. But I also realized that I was a very negative self-talk, and I had to say, kind of, okay, cool, let's do this. Let's see how it looks. Last time I did my LinkedIn, the little progress meter on the side was like this really unhappy, like red bottom. It looked like, you know, when your cousin drinks like the last of the orange juice and just puts like this, that's what it looked like. It was really, really annoying and depressing and just terrible. So I actually didn't dismiss all the questions I asked. I said, you know, let me allow myself to be challenged. Let me answer all these questions. LinkedIn is probably, and this is not an endorsement, however, LinkedIn, if you guys want to send me money, I'll do these for you guys anywhere that you want. LinkedIn is probably one of the best self-interviews that you can do. Short of applying for the Red Bull Music Academy, which is a whole other. It will ask you, have you won any awards? No, but wait, no, I did win that one award. I did this too. Okay. It'll remind you of things you've forgotten about. Things that weren't a big deal at the time because you did it, but it's like, oh yeah, I guess I was sales leader for 3 years in a row. At a Fortune 500, oh, I guess that's kind of a good thing. I should probably write that down. Have you ever been published? No, well, actually, no, my work was featured in that one magazine and in that blog. You know, okay, maybe there's more. Do you have any extracurricular activities? Oh, I attend this professional gathering twice a month. I guess that counts. And you start realizing, damn, I've actually done some stuff. Like, I really have done some things. And once you're done, you get a chance to look at yourself, not for all of the insecurities you have, not for how many bad hair days you had, or how many days you were late to work, or how much you hate your boss, or how much you work with a bunch of total complete tools that just have resources and no vision. But you realize, oh my goodness, looking at my resume, I'm impressed. Like, who is this person? Because this isn't who I see in the mirror. And then you fix it. You align everything to make sure that you know what your talk points are. How many of you guys have been in sales before? Raise your hand. Most important thing about selling a product is product knowledge, correct? Because if you know your product, you don't have to sell it. You're just matching. Needs discovery questions. Always be closing. All of these things all come from adequate product knowledge. How do you sell yourself if you don't have any confidence in the product? You can't. So this is the first step towards understanding how to even monetize anything, because if you don't feel that you're worth $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 a year, you're never going to get it. You're going to consistently be doing jobs and favors for friends and looking for handouts and the next thing that's going to save your life. Instead of standing for, no, this is what it's worth. It's a really funny meme out right now. It's actually like a Vine, and it's this kid who's playing both roles, and this guy was like, yo, once you shoot my video, I was like, what's your budget? It's like, no, I need to know what kind of camera you're using, and, you know, did you go to film school? What's your budget? Because that is what always happens. Non-creatives make their life's work to make creatives feel like they're not needed when they're needed more than anything in the world. How do you spend an entire creative budget on the thing you want to make, but you want to pay sandwich money for the person that's going to capture it? That's not good business. But you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And if you don't know your product knowledge, you can't negotiate shit. So, the other reason why you have value as a creative is because you get it. How many people have been told, like, oh, I love you, you get it, you just get it. Feels good to hear that, right? How do you quantify that? What does getting it mean? How do you put that in words? Like, I get it. I am a professional getter. Anybody have any idea how to explain that to somebody? What does getting mean? What does it mean when someone says you get it?
You understand?
Okay.
I said common sense, but common sense is everything. Or you share something. Yeah.
High school. We didn't have a lot of money. Poured over every high fashion magazine and every source magazine. Love home. Why? Because it's home. It's Ralph. But I was noticing that the runway looks very similar to what Mobb Deep and Method Man were wearing in their videos, just way bigger. And I had an epiphany. Oh my goodness. Ralph is just referencing military stuff. Oh, this is so, wait. All of this prep stuff is American. Oh my God, this is amazing. In that moment, I got it. There's no technical definition for getting it, but I've created one that works very well for me. And also because I'm very pedantic, I like to use a lot of words because I have a mastery of the English language that I thoroughly enjoy. This is mine. Feel free to use it. To get it means two things: cognitive linear association and pattern recognition. So let me explain those. Cognitive linear association. Cognitive linear association. I was able to cognitively see the lineage of what Ralph was doing and associate it to everything else. I got it. Then I saw that replicated over a series of different instances, and I recognized the pattern. I get it. How is it possible for me to get it? Well, part of it is definitely an innate talent. Some people just get things way quicker than other people. And that's what's called vision. And vision is like prescription glasses. If you take yours off and put on someone else that doesn't have the same prescription, just because they can't see through your glasses, does that mean your glasses don't work? No. It just means that they have no vision and they don't have your vision. So you are responsible to make your vision real so they can't help but see. You take being able to get it and revisit a quote that Ira Glass talks about when she says, nobody tells it to beginners, but what really got you into your industry is your taste. And you'll fail and you'll mess up and you won't do things right, but your taste is still killer. It just needs to be refined because you get it. And how do you expand how many things you can get? Well, having more things to associate. How do you have more things to associate? Do more different jobs. And that is where you get your pattern recognition, your cognitive linear association. More vastly different experiences, deeper pull of cross references. And the best way to monetize that, two ways. Number one, you go on Google, create a title, and say, okay, how much do creative directors make in the 90015 zip code? And you can try to price it at that. You can do the mathematic approach, which is, okay, what's the highest salary I've ever been paid? And we'll just go with that and see if maybe somebody might pay me. I don't know. We'll see. It'll make it make sense. Or you can start sharing your work. Because I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you are not willing to be how great you actually are, either for fear of making your superiors feel inferior, or alienating your friends because you're actually much better at things than they are and have no idea what you're doing. And it's okay. They made a movie about it. It's not really a documentary. It was called X-Men, and it was about people that had amazing powers, and they went to a place called Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters that taught them how to hone it. And they saved the world from the people that were making fun of them that they could have killed. You're all cold-blooded creative killers. But if you don't know how to use it, you're only going to kill yourself. Austin Kleon has an amazing book called Show Your Work. And what he talks about in that, he talks about a number of things. But one of the things he parallels is how in the days of Picasso and Rembrandt, things of that nature, people think, oh, these great painters, they just popped up and they created their masterpieces and they died. That was it. No, they worked amongst each other. And they created something called a scenius. Scenius is a combination of scene and genius. People aren't geniuses, they have a genius. It's a talent. And it's being able to tap into it on demand. AVR is a scenius. You're surrounded by people that you can tap into that have the same power as you. You can speak the same language. You can nerd out about fabrics and patterns and tech packs and how people are really stupid because they don't understand what they're asking to be done, but they want it done by Tuesday and it really needs another 6 weeks. This is where you can do it. This is your Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. But if you don't speak up, if you don't share and show what you do, no one can be a reflection to you. You only get out of what you put into it. So, best example I can give you guys for monetization is this. Once you've gone through your resume, once you've gone through everything that makes you great, once you've had it vetted and tested and confirmed by all the people around you, set your price. Set it high. And do not falter, do not give discounts. Set your price. Because your price is your standard, it is your value. The same we have back home. Once you set your price, no one will raise it for you. So if you set your price too low and you expect a raise in the future, who in their right mind of good business is going to pay you more money to do the same thing you've been doing? And whose fault is it that you've been doing 200% at 50% money? You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Set your price high. If people can't meet it, they are not the clients for you. But Louis Vuitton hasn't gone out of business yet, so somebody's buying $5,000 bags. So somebody has that money. Go find them. Don't settle for what's just around you. Go find your crowd. Find your customer. They exist. They're out there. One of the most motivational things I ever saw was anytime you think that there's no one to believe in your idea, anytime you think that there's no money out there to fund what you want to do, just remember one thing. Someone funded Sharknado. 3 times. You can find your crowd. And that's where the ceiling, floor. Your ceiling is what you don't believe anybody will pay you, but you know that's what you're worth. And the moment somebody pays you, that instantly becomes your floor. That is your new base. And you stand on it. It's no, somebody's paid me this before, so it's real. It's real. Yep, you're looking at it. That's it. I'm worth every penny of that. Okay, yep. I'm worth every penny of that. Every single penny. And that is how you monetize yourself. But beyond that, never give up learning. Never stop looking. And keep pushing yourself. Like for me, I'm still searching, looking for answers. Drawing a quarter of the universe into tantras. Then meditated upon a fraction of light while ringing around the rosy of Saturn and satellite sea. This is my Epimetheus elegy. With 2020 vision, I'm looking backwards ahead of me when analyzing all I accumulated and thought that my inner happy and peace could be quantitatively bought now. I've given it all away, well, a little bit. I'm connected in better ways. Itinerant as I wander and dial another star. I'm Morgan Freeman, the whirlpool, wondering what you are now. I awoke in the solar plexus, and like the resonating in frequencies in my chest, but accumulated in my diaphragm like a diagram of how to speak myself back into life, back to myself again. Molecular reconstruction. I had to sip the water of Anunnaki to function, though ayahuasca. Nothing I couldn't conquer with adequate reflections and messages from our sponsor. Celestials and eternals, elder gods, other deities, guardians of the sternum, meaning if the heart of the universe is a node, the sternum stars to cover it, twinkle ever in code now. See, we've assembled the pieces into a constellation of thesis, or the night of our species. Our identity light comes when the thesis amalgamates, so they should receive. You should read this. And we've assembled the pieces into a constellation of thesis, over the night of our species. Our identity light comes when the thesis amalgamates, so we can receive. And you should read this.
I kind of just want to cut it right there. I got nothing to say.
There's no rapid box. Questions? Anybody? Somebody has a question. I mean, I love this. I love the compliment. Yes, I'm very good at explaining things, but I could not have explained everything. There has to be a question. No one wants to know why I just did all these rhyming words and a story about everything else. No one cares about that part.
I wasn't there.
Parallels.
Right.
How do you get people's attention? Draw on something else that is a talent. I started my life as an MC in the spoken word artist. And I went from there into the only thing that makes sense. Actually, of course it does. Worked a retail job like most struggling artists. So I just discount home code, of course. Made sense. The problem is I ended up liking it a lot. I enjoyed working with people, and from then on I went on to get into management. From then on I went into merchandising, and that's my background. I started off with merchandising, moved up to buying, opened stores, created storefront. I wanted to do like Ralph Lauren windows. Like I was like, yeah, like, you know, I'm stop all this funny stuff at 30, and from 30 to retirement, I'm just gonna do Ralph windows. I'll work for a day. But it evolved, and I realized that I was intrigued by art in all ways. And to me, art is anything that makes you feel something. Spoken, written, visual, whatever the case may be. And I was drawing inspiration from art museums and installations to inspire fashion because I didn't believe that I had the value to go straight into the art world. Thankfully, I got over that. I started curating independent art exhibitions because I understood how to tell a story, how to merchandise. All these are parallels. And this is how I got to where I am now. And this is why what I do for creatives that I work with is I show them who they are. I listen to them talk like a therapist. I write everything down, and I draw out a sketch. And it looks pretty much like, you know, the Matrix when I saw like the falling numbers, but 10 could actually see the pictures in it. I'm like, yeah, this is you. This is how awesome you are. Here you go. See that? Mm-hmm. I believe in people for a living. And I love everything. Does that answer your question?
I was wondering, when we were talking about like connecting, whenever we met before this, I was wondering if you could tell everyone the story about the Dope Couture, because that was probably the most...
I really thought I was going to work that in. I forgot. Okay, so...
This is like the most incredible story ever.
So what brought me to Los Angeles was, anybody familiar with the store Dope on Fairfax? Like they had to say Dope on it or something like that?
Yeah.
All right, so to credit or blame for that. Shout out to Billy. So, Dope was a streetwear brand that was started in Bloomington, Indiana, just off of the campus of Indiana University. And my association with Dope was I was performing and I wanted to wear something that represented home in a much more organic way that wasn't just like a team jersey or something like that. Like I believed in, you know, investing in and supporting and, you know, creatives from where I'm from because it was amazing. I was going all over these places like, yeah, the Hundreds is great. Crooks and Castles, awesome. Supreme, yes. Diamond, awesome. But I want something that's connected to me. Everything I do has to have a story. Worked with them for a few years. The owner said, hey, we're moving to LA. Would you mind coming out here and running the store? Because I know you have experience in that. Came out here. I opened the store, supervised the build out of it, was the store manager, lead buyer, and brand manager, meaning I have all strategic partnerships and connections with, like, you know, placements and videos and films and stuff like that. So did that for about 2 years. Left in 2013 to freelance and help a lot of people that were coming in trying to sell their goods. Well, last January, end of January last year, about Sundance time, because as I told you guys, I'm kind of a film fan, and I was reading on The Wire. It's like, what is this film doing? Interesting. Let's see what it's about. Wasn't a lot of word about it except for that it was directed by a guy from Inglewood about some kids that were obsessed with the early 90s in Los Angeles that love streetwear. I'm like, duh, of course, this is a perfect connection. But my connection came from, again, we're talking about parallels. Anybody hear about what they did with the movie Kingsman and Mr. Porter? So for anybody not familiar, basically the wardrobe designer from the film Kingsman, The Secret Service, designed a capsule collection that was sold through Mr. Porter based on the looks from that film. Never been done before. I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I immediately started thinking about tons of movies that I wish I could have gotten like the exact jacket from. Like, imagine if they'd done that for Drive. Like, what? Like, it's amazing. Like, imagine if they had done that with the suits from American Psycho. Like, just all of the potential implications. So I'm thinking, well, that was a big deal for men's wear in high fashion. What would happen if we did it streetwear? So at like 11 at night, I sent like a 2-paragraph text message to the owner of Dope and said, yo, screenshot of this film's called Dope. You guys are called Dope. If you guys find a way to put it together, I think it'd be great to pitch to them the idea of doing a capsule collection inspired by the characters in the film. Here's you back the next day, like, yeah, sounds really cool. I have no idea what you're talking about and how to execute it. But I refuse to let it die. I was like, no, this needs to happen. Even though I'm no longer working with you guys, I believe in the brand. I came out here to make sure that Dope wouldn't be forgotten. That was like my Indiana flag planted firmly out here in Los Angeles. And so I said, no, you really need to do this. Like, this is going to be a deal. It's similar to the argument we had in 2007 when I said you need to trademark Dope because you're going to need it one day. And now you're saying Caesar, this is like about to write. Of course you should do this. Well, if you think it's a good idea, then you can come in and I'll pay you your fee to do it. Perfect! Because another one of the lessons I learned is that I negotiated a very poor rate of pay for doing 3 jobs when I moved out here. Let's just say that. But the initiation of the project was hellish because I don't know anything about the movie industry. But I know how protocols work. There's a point person to talk to, and I know how to give an elevator pitch. So I did. I actually looked up the director on Twitter, and wouldn't you know it, he's wearing a Dope shirt from our store. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw this guy. This is hilarious. So between talking to Rick W., he connected me to his representatives at WME. Went up to WME with the production manager at Dope, Nick Barsox, and we went up there, we had a meeting, and they were like, yeah, it sounds like a really great idea, we're trying to see how we can make this make sense, cool, we'll call you. And 6 weeks went by, and then I started seeing that they were advertising for the film to come out in June. It's like, okay, we need to do something. So we put some pressure on them, finally get a call back from Liz Bieber, who runs Open Road Studios. And Open Road was who basically won the bidding and spent the most money to get the rights for it at Sundance. It sold for something crazy. Like, not as crazy as Birth of a Nation, but crazy. And everything was super fashion there. So we went, saw the movie twice, me and Chris Mark and Nick, we went and saw it. That was our creative team. We were like, okay, cool. We can make things based on this and based on the band and send together. And we emailed the ideas. They was like, yeah. Then we get a phone call. So yeah, Pharrell, since he wrote the songs for the group Oreo, you can't use anything related to the band name and clothing because he owns the trademark on it. And I'm like, that's interesting, seeing as how Dope owns the trademark. Yeah, I'll get back to you. So get back to Dope, and of course they were like, what? Like, how does this, we need to make, it needs to be a 3-way collaboration with Dope and the movie and BDC. And my first knee-jerk reaction was like, good luck. Until I said, wait, we have a play here. We could actually file an injunction and shut them down if they didn't do it. But instead of being negatively proactive, let's be positive. Let's just pitch it to them. Let's see what happens. They're like, oh, wait, you really think it'll work? And what? Hey, the worst they can say is no, and then the whole thing is dead in the water. But the best thing they can say is yeah. The most nerve-wracking waiting for this 3-way phone call between myself, Liz, and I'm spacing on one guy's name from the BBC. 3-way call, I remember exactly where I was. I was in Santa Monica, 3rd Street Promenade, trying to find a quiet place to talk. And we get on the phone, Liz gives a very comprehensive overview of the whole project. Got the BBC's like, okay. And then I said, okay, well, here's our proposal. Retrofit this into this, so we can do this, and everybody makes lifestyles happen. Okay. It's the easiest negotiation I've ever done, understanding that it's not how it normally goes. Later come to find out, it was really just because I made a good case, I was succinct, I was straight to the point, and I understood the value on all sides of keeping it from being messy. But it was because I had been on different sides of that and seeing it go horribly wrong. So this falls back into Nick's lap, who has to manage production for all of this stuff. But we get the approval. And Dope does one of the very few, if not only, cross-brand collaborations with BBC. And I was then tapped to come and create and run the activation that we did for it at the Dope store on Fairfax, as well as the subsequent screening we did for all of the attendees at the London Hotel. And so I got a chance to curate that experience. And I actually did something that I had not done previously, which was I allowed myself to be something. I normally would hide behind the scenes and things after leaving the music world when I stepped back from things. But that night, I got a chance to meet Rick at they invited me to the red carpet screening, which was really awesome. I've never been to a red carpet screening. If anybody ever gets a chance to go to one, it's an amazing thing, especially if you appreciate processes. It's a crazy production, it's amazing. But that night I got a chance to meet Rick Famuyiwa, who was a director, and he was extremely gracious, more than he even needed to be, and I appreciated that. But I met Apparel and he told me thank you. And that really meant a lot to me because he's somebody that I've consistently respected as a creative and a mentor at a distance, if you will, somebody that inspires you and you kind of follow their works, but they're not directly incorporated to you. So that was an amazing opportunity, and it all came because I would not let something die, and I wasn't afraid to knock on the doors and trust in my talents that I would figure it out. I had no idea how to make it work, but I knew that I could. And that is probably the most amazing part about that, and the fact that I got a chance to create something that is historic and really cemented the name of a brand that was very near and dear to me, that I've always believed in. So. Oh, the book club.
Yeah, so, I mean, Jason, we'll let you do some stuff too, but
Before we break off, and I want to talk briefly about the website, how to maybe get in touch with ABR, and a little bit about what we do there.
Sorry.
We're actually going to start branching off and doing other events and sub-events. We're going to keep doing this twice a month. But actually, one more time, Jason? One more time, please.
I'm really trying not to be a bear hole.
So, I mean, I got to say, this guy, a great speaker, my God, right? Every time, inspiring. Every time we talk to him, we walk away and we're just like, wow. Let's do something. I don't care what it is. Let's just do something. It's complicated. So we're branching out. Our community is growing at an exponential rate. This is absolutely amazing. One thing that when we have these little talks that we get together and have lunch, we always end up two things: quoting people and talking about the books we've read. And two things that most successful people that I've encountered, personally at least, have in common is that they read a lot of books. They're always, pulling ideas from different people who have gone there and done these amazing things, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done. Just read. So Jason has an amazing idea for a book club, and I'm going to let you go and talk a little bit about that.
So very, 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 very briefly, I know I've listed a lot of books and things of that nature. I'm probably going to do like a follow-up to one of the emails once we start the book swap, but it's an idea that I've had that there should be a professional resource for those in the apparel industry and also in the creative pursuits to come and be inspired, to exchange ideas, but also just to exchange books. Like friends of mine, we used to do that in college, and that was a really fun thing. Like, not the required readings, but the other stuff. It's like, oh, here, read this book, like, it inspired me. Oh, read this book, like, it took me back to my childhood. It reminded me of an idea that I had when I was 8, and now I remember, like, that I should probably do this thing. So it's still in the formative stages. I still have to work out the logistics on where it will be, but anyone that knows anyone or has any contacts at the library bar, I would love to do it there. And the concept is a give one, take one book swap. Anybody that's been to like Farmer's Daughter over there on Fairfax, there's a little, like, it looks like a house on a pole, and there's books in it. Just take one, leave one. I want to do that, but a little more engaging and let people kind of discuss it, and also kind of like barter for books. Like, look, I brought these 2 books because I want that one right there. Because that is how you build the scenes. that is how you invest in your creative community. Because the thing is, the more successful all of you are, the more resources you have that can benefit every person next to you as well. There's a reason why there are these little cult sections of New York that are doing amazingly well. They work with each other. They're like, it's not magic. It's not like, oh, this person got discovered. No, this person put this person on to this person. That's how it works. And in such a dog-eat-dog world, like, the more that you realize you're not alone, like social media can only do so much. Books are the one way to transcend time and boundaries and any other limitations. So that's something that I'm looking forward to expanding. Anyone that has any interest in helping organize, participate in it, or just knows good spaces to do it in, please come and find me. But also, after everything's done, I'd love to at least be able to shake hands with everybody that's in here so that I know how I can best help, because I am a resource. Like I said, I believe in people for a living, and this is the sales part that you guys are talking about. I do offer my services. Very selective of the clients that I take on, because I want people that are serious. That's it. I'm not asking for people that have a ton of money. I'm asking for people that are serious. So if I can help you creatively progress any idea, I'll just give you very simple. Hourly rate is $185 an hour. Day rate is $975. That's 8 solid hours of work to either get you right or give you ideas and give you a plan. But you're going to leave with an actual PDF of the plan that you can execute from there. So it's not just paying to hear somebody talk. You're going to get results from that. And from then, it's like meeting with a personal trainer. If you don't do the work, you're not going to see results. If you stick to that plan, you can do it. And if the project calls for more, we'll associate that at that time. But anybody that's interested or needs that, please come and find me. We'll have my information up. You guys will be able to find me. But I'm around. I'm a resource. I'm here to see everybody be amazing, because these Ferraris ain't going to go on their toes.
Last couple things I just want to point out before we break off and actually get to talk to each other. I know you guys have been really patient sitting down for a while. I'd like to identify that, yes, we are a networking group or a collaboration, but we're a network community. You know, I mean, one stigma that the apparel industry has in general is that everybody wants to protect their idea, right? And everybody that feels like, okay, well, now when I graduated school, I'm by myself, I'm all alone. Or let's say you never got to go to school for apparel. You know, you come in this industry, you don't know anybody, and you feel like you're trying to conquer your own destiny alone. Well, it doesn't have to be like that. Collaboration, support, and innovation. Let's collaborate. Talk to each other. Share each other's resources. Share each other's ideas. Support each other. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had these amazing ideas and I just get down on myself, right? And all I have to have is one lunch with a friend or somebody to give me that talk to uplift me to, like, yes, you can do it. Let me help you. And let's innovate. Collaboration, support, innovation in that order. And that's what we want. Create a community, a paradigm shift in the way the industry thinks. You don't have to hold on to your idea like it's, you know, some pot of treasure you can't share with the world. We can change the industry starting in this room right now. And that's really what we want now with ABR. So if you want to get in contact with us and want to become a part of ABR, we're a growing team. We just brought in beautiful gentleman over here, Ken, who is our, shout out to Ken, he's on our social media now, he's fantastic. But we're growing and we need help. So we'd love for anybody to get in touch with us if they want to be part of ABR. Please go ahead and fill out these little slips that we have on the tables there. You can also get in touch with us on the website at Connect over here if you want your information, if you want to continue to get emails about our meetings or anything else we got going on. Feel free to take some business cards and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all the other ones that we have. They're all on there. So that's all I got. Thank you again for coming, and feel free to talk and network.